It looks so peaceful from up here. Almost like nothing ever happened.
Yeah.
Lil,
It talked to me. The clown.
what do you mean?
He said, I'm gonna have a son. And that he and his friends, that they kill him in the future. That's why he wanted to kill me. He said, to him, the past, present, and future are all the same. And that his death was actually his birth.
He was probably just saying all that to scare you.
But what if he wasn't? What if he does see time differently? What if he can go backwards?
You mean to the past?
I know it sounds crazy, but what if he tries to go back and kill someone from the time before we were born? Like our parents.
I guess it'll be someone else's fight.
Hello, all. Welcome back to What's On Tonight, a podcast with elaborate, quirky, and unpredictable conversations about TV, movies, and more. I'm Becky.
And I'm Mandy.
Today, we are covering the season finale of HBO Max's Welcome to Derry, titled Winter Fire. Please note this is a spoiler-filled podcast, so if you haven't watched the episode yet, don't want to be spoiled, just come back and check us out after you finish watching.
All right. Episode 8 was written by Jason Fuchs and directed by Andy Machete. Andrew. He's going by the formal Andrew in this introduction.
Yeah, Wikipedia.
Well, I mean, it's his last episode. He should be more formal.
I agree. And to Jason Fuchs, if you ever listen, please don't judge us. We're just 12 years old at heart.
He sounds like a great guy. Well, as I've already pointed out, my maiden name was Bro, and it was spelled Brough. I was Mandy Bra, Mandy Bruff. I got my fair share of shit. And I feel like Jason's a cool guy because we know he can.
Highest compliment we could give. All right. Well, do you want to share the synopsis for this episode?
Yep. Ooh, me. Taking my deep breath. I did hit my inhaler before I came on. Here we go. Under a dense fog, Pennywise kills the school principal and hypnotizes the children, leading them away as Ronnie, Lily, and Marge pursue him.
Comedy gold.
That was some good stuff. Leroy seeks Halloran's help to find the children, and with a tea made of maturin root that Rose provides for him, he is able to pull it together enough to silence the voices and track Lily's dagger. Pennywise separates Marge after sensing her future son, Richie Tozier, will be involved in his death. Halloran freezes the entity long enough to free Will and the other children, but Shaw and the military intervene, killing Taniel and detaining the adults.
Fucking Shaw.
No. We'll get into it.
Yep.
Pennywise kills Shaw and pursues the children, and as they try to restore the cage while the adults subdue the soldiers and shoot Pennywise, slowing him until Rich's spirit helps place the dagger that imprisons him. Marge explains to Lily that the entity experiences time differently and may be acting to avoid its own future death. After Rich's funeral, Ronnie and Will share a kiss before she leaves Derry with Hank. Halloran leaves Derry to work as a hotel chef. Charlotte and an honorably discharged Leroy remain in Derry, and Ingrid is institutionalized. 26 years later, Ingrid witnesses Elfreda Marsh's suicide and meets her daughter, Beverly.
Wow.
They did give us a lot in that final episode. How long was it? Do you remember what the running time was?
4 hours.
It felt like it.
None of them were longer than an hour and 15 minutes.
Let me Google it real quick.
Yeah, Google that and see what it says.
An hour and 10 minutes.
I think I'm good.
Yeah, it felt longer to me.
It didn't on the first watch, but when I was watching it the second time to take notes, I was like, this is never going to end.
There was so much going on. The scene changed so many times that it felt like I was watching a 2-hour movie.
Well, let's dive in.
All right.
So we start with the fog rolling in. The whole fog thing, they didn't really explain it. But I'm okay with that because it gave us some really cool shots throughout the episode. So I'm not stressing too much over it. But we see it spreading over into town, and then we see it on the radar. I thought it was really cool that we got to see that Pennywise person in the window. And I'm seeing a lot of talk online that that's supposed to be Betty Ripsom.
Mm-hmm.
Is that who that was?
Yeah, I didn't Google it. I saw the same thing you did, but just judging by the clips of those two scenes, it does seem like that to me. Hold on. You know what? To the Google machine. Let's look that up.
Well, I did Google it, and it's not necessarily definitive.
Ah,
There's nowhere it's actually confirmed other than I think I did see someone say, yes, it's the same actress.
well, I mean, like that would point to them trying to show that that is who that was. I mean, that
Yeah.
seems pretty definitive to me. I'm Googling, and this is just the AI overview. It does say that it was her.
Oh,
But again, this is just the AI overview. I'm not looking at the links. But as we've discussed, and we'll be getting into several more times throughout this, there were a lot of things that I felt like they introduced into this that just at the end of the day, we don't get enough context and closure. But reading that helped me feel better about the whole time is a flat circle deal Pennywise gets into later. That little Easter egg helped me feel a little bit better about that whole thing because it did feel like they were layering into the plot some actual meat to back that up.
yeah. I think we got a decent amount of that in this episode. So then we get the scene where Principal It calls all the students to an assembly in the gym, and that was wild.
Yeah, I bet very, very Carrie of Pennywise to do that.
Very.
And I want to say the fog too, before we move past that, it reminded me very much of The Mist.
Yeah.
Which I have mixed feelings about. On the one hand, I think it's very cool. One of the things I've really enjoyed about this series is how many different parts of the Stephen King multiverse they are bringing into this plot, kind of like Castle Rock, that they are tying a bunch of threads together outside of just Derry, Maine. But on the other hand, I feel like they just had so many balls that they were juggling up in the air. I'm not sure if that really came across. It almost to me felt more just like a random wink. This is a Stephen King homage than it did a real layering in of the mythos. And so I don't know. I just felt like it was yet another one of those things that like they introduced it without really giving a lot of explanation of why we suddenly have a Pennywise fog.
I completely agree with you. They did nothing to explain, even mention it after all was said and done. But
Right.
I'm okay with it because as we get into the big fight scenes, I think made for some great shots.
Yeah. I mean, visually loved it. And getting into the cafeteria with the kids, like I did like the cariness of it all. To my mind, that was an appropriate because it was more subtle nod to the Stephen King thing.
Yeah. And I liked it too because, I mean, it was gross, but the way, you're wondering where's Pennywise going now that he's free? What's going to happen? And I think they did a good job of wrapping that up and giving us that segue into what happens at the river. So It was a good amount of gore. It was the right amount of Stephen King, silliness and goofiness with Pennywise, the dancing clown. And then I love it when he said, I see your pretty faces and I taste them too. And they're like, yeah, this isn't good. And then he hits him with the deadlights, which I wasn't expecting. I thought it was just going to be like a big giant feast for him. But I like the direction they took it better going the way that they did.
I kind of had mixed feelings about that too. I mean, on the one hand, I did love the scene, absolutely love the scene. I think that you're spot on. Like with a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about that I wasn't so keen on felt like they really veered away from the horror in this last episode. That was very welcome. That shot of him using the principal as a ventriloquist dummy and ripping his head off and throwing him out into the crowd, that was really good, especially with the little dumb one-liner about, what was it he said again?
Oh, I see your pretty faces and I taste them too.
No, not that one. What did he say before when he was still pretending to be the principal before he threw him out?
Oh, I don't remember when he was using him as like a ventriloquist dummy.
Yeah, whatever. It was very cute and very funny. And it was really good juxtaposed with the fact that he just ripped his head off and threw him out at a bunch of kids. The deadlights thing, it's cool, but it's like, do the deadlights mean nothing to anyone anymore? In the original, and in the book, like to get somebody removed from the deadlight was a big deal. And then once it happened, you didn't just pick up and move on. Remember Bill's wife?
Yeah, he had to take her on the bike ride, kind of like reinvigorate her childhood or
Right, like she was
emotions.
still deeply traumatized in there. And I think I don't remember which one it was, but one of their bullies, who had saw the deadlights was then in Juniper Hill. Well, look at what's her face. She's in Juniper Hill. Partly it's other things, but what got her there was the deadlights. So it's just kind of like, I don't know. It's cool that they did that whole big scene. And I definitely like the Pied Piper, leading the kids out of the town with the caravan. But then it's just like the deadlights are just, they mean nothing to you. They're just cheap to you. You just deadlights and deadlights people as you feel like it. I didn't like that.
Now, I could see where you're coming from. That didn't bother me because I just justified it in my head as well. When Pennywise's hold is broken, they kind of come back to themselves. But you're right. I did not take into consideration that he did that to Denbro's wife and he had to go through extreme measures to get her back. So, yeah, I didn't think about that. So we get a brief moment of the girls are cleaning up at the standpipe and they see the fog rolling into town, which I think was another nice shot. I like that they walk outside. They look back at the wall of the standpipe. They see photos of all of these kids that they know. And they're like, what the hell is happening? So I thought that was a good tie-in.
Which Pennywise had to have made those, right?
Yes, absolutely. That was definitely a Pennywise vision or whatever you want to call it.
Becky's husband is imprinting. And both times I watched that, I kind of had this thought of trying to imagine Darren's thoughts of watching that scene and being like, he could never get all of those printed up. No, there is no printer that has the capacity to get that out. And
yeah, he can't get them out that fast.
Right.
If he has one at home, he has a laser jet. It prints fast. It was definitely black and white, nothing fancy. So he could pull that off.
Honestly, again, love the detail. I love Pennywise. He's not just going to rip your principal's head off. He's not just going to put you in a ghost caravan. He's going to really do the work of like, now I just kill all these kids. I got them in line. I need to go get these posters up real quick because the other kids are going to be, I just like imagining him scrambling through the halls of the school.
I have so much to do. His checklist and his little personal assistant running next to him. Yes, Mr. Wise. Yes, Mr. Wise.
This is his Thanksgiving. Yes, he's like the Miranda, what's her name from Devil Wears Prada. He's got maybe I don't know, like the little leprechaun from the Leprechauns movie could be his little personal assistant. Friend.
I like it. Yeah. All right, writers, hit us up.
We have ideas.
We're about to make season 2 off the hook. So once they realize what that means on the wall, they, of course, decide to take off to the school to find out if this is real, which is smart. Pennywise is Pennywise. So let's, before we do anything drastic, let's go make sure this is accurate.
Sometimes he's just tripping. We don't know. Is he just being melodramatic or did he really go kill all of our friends?
Right. Let's find out. God, yeah. Pennywise. Pennywise is a high school bully, is what he is.
He's the Regina George of TV monsters. Yes.
Yes. Very, very good comparison.
He loves his outfits. He's really big about presentation.
And it's all about him.
It's all about him. He always is like, go big. He has his minions until you piss him off, and then he's going to deadlight you or bite your face off, as we find out later.
He's so fetch.
Yeah. Stop making fetch happen.
Oh, we get a quick shot of, I wrote here in my notes, Pennywise is leading the kids away and playing a tuba with the dead guy's arm laying around.
I liked that.
I loved it.
Like I said, it reminded me of the Pied Piper, which is like a very creepy, sinister story and is allegedly based on a true story from Germany. The Pied Piper. I don't know if you ever knew that, but yeah.
No.
after we get off, I'll send you a link. And I think there's debate about whether it's true or not, but historically been accepted that like there was a dude that came and no one knows why. No one knows what happened to the kids. I don't think he took all the kids, but he apparently took a lot of kids from this little German town during the Middle Ages. And that's where that led. Maybe it was Pennywise.
I think we just solved one of the world's
We solved
greatest
it.
mysteries. Yeah, why aren't people calling us for stuff?
I don't know, Becky. I do not know.
Get it together, people. So we head to the gym where the girls see the principal is dead and they're very confused how Pennywise managed to get all the kids. And then I loved that shot of Will's missing poster blowing up and Ronnie getting it and seeing that they realize that there's a trail of blood and they're gonna go save him. And Marge, oh, Matilda, you are a rock star. She said, I want to kill that fucking clown.
Yeah, I wrote in here, I love Batty Marge. Come get your Batty chain, Marge.
Yeah.
You earned it in this episode, for real. Did you see the social media posts about how that actually echoes a line from Richie Tozier in It Chapter 1?
No.
Yeah, he says that in It Chapter 1.
Oh, cool.
And then the older Richie Tozier says it in It Chapter 2.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
That was a place where they layered in like that world building that they're doing very well.
They did it in a couple of other places.
Yeah, and I want to point those out because, again, I talked to Becky about this a little bit. Again, this is one of those, the first series that we've really a couple of times had to have some talks before we record. And one of them was I didn't want to come across as too negative because there's going to be several times throughout this that I'm going to point out things that I just did not like about this ending. But I don't want to come across as being overly negative because overall, I am so glad we covered this and I loved this series. I loved it. I'm glad they're very likely going to get more seasons. Hopefully there are some things that they're going to fine tune. So anybody listening to this, I hope that's what you take away from this. When you hear me being a little critical of things, I really do love this series.
Yeah. Neither one of us hate watched any of this. We watched it with completely open minds. And we're not alone. You know, there's a lot of people that where it hit, where it missed. And that's that's part of a show, you know?
Yeah.
We'll get more into it as we go, but the Marge, Lily, and Ronnie together was the best comedy breaks and very much needed in this episode. You know, when they're all three trying to ride on the bike, they're fussing at each other.
I can't even imagine how annoying that would be to try to ride three on a bike.
Not a chance. Seeing them just two on a bike stresses me out.
Right.
I don't know how you pull that off with three.
Oh, yeah. I think when we were really little, because I rode my bike a lot when I was a kid. I was even in a little bike gang in my neighborhood.
Of course you were.
Yeah. We'd just ride around and look for bottle caps and do wheelies and try to dare each other to do shit that was going to get us taken to the emergency room.
Yeah.
But we did occasionally try to do that three on a bike, but it was like a dare type of thing, and it never worked. So the fact that they were able to go at all doing that was pretty crazy.
Yeah. I'm going to give Matilda another shout out here. I wrote my notes. Matilda is killing this yet again. Perfect amount of balance, fear, faith, and humor. She's like, my uncle owns a truck when they get into the milkman's truck because he's not going to need it anymore.
Right. See, that's what I'm talking about Pennywise being busy. He even took time to stop and murk the milkman on his way.
Well, we wondered why his teeth were so strong. Now we know because he ate the milkman.
He ate the milkman, yeah.
But it's cute when she says, my uncle owns a truck, and they're like, and he let you drive? And she's like, no, but I watched him. And I'm like, that is the kind of spirit and heart that we need in America today. It's like that. I'm not a doctor, but I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express hotel last night commercials.
That kind of confidence, yes.
Yes, that's what we need.
These girls really grew up a lot in this series. I think they did that very well. I like the story that they told with those three and their friendship. It was in some ways, very realistic. I mean, I love that they showed the complexity of friendship.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you get that a lot with female friendship in media. You either see that everybody is catty or you see that everybody is hyper sweet, and that's not reality. And they all came together, and then challenges screwed him up for a lot, but I loved how they all at the end were able to grow up and learn lessons and accept blame, like accept their own failings and pull it together and do some really badass things.
Yeah.
That was a really good part of this episode. I also, before I forget, want to say that Marge is constant having to defend herself from the fact that she's trying to drive with one eye. You and I can relate to, like, how many times in our life wearing glasses and not having great vision
Oh,
have we had
gosh.
to defend our driving?
Especially at night in the rain. It's like, look, I'm doing the best I can. I'm seeing 47 of these car lights in front of me, and I don't know which is which.
Yeah, the reality of it, though, is we probably shouldn't have been driving any more than Margie should have been driving that bus.
No, 100%. So you've John over to Leroy's barracks, and he's trying to call the house, but Will's not picking up. And I wrote in parentheses at the end of my note, more fear, exclamation point, or exclamation point. I want to come up with a mark called an exclamation point. Doesn't that sound kind of cool?
Yes, it's just like something that really conveys better than just a question mark. Basically, like the punctuation equivalent of that meme of that girl that's got her hand out that just looks like, what the fuck?
Yes.
That you send to people when they just said some shit that just makes no sense.
That's our explanation point.
Yes.
Ah,
Becky, get on that.
the hits keep coming.
So Pennywise says, what scares the man without fear? Everything.
Everything.
That is something I have not been able to reconcile. Never at any point does it make sense that this man was identified in the first or second episode as having been explicitly brought there because he has no fear, and yet exhibited fear at every turn.
Yep.
Every episode.
Yeah. The only good thing that came out of this, I wrote 2 notes here. Laugh my ass off at Pennywise's dark meat tastes twice as sweet.
So yeah, I was wondering how you feel about that.
That made me laugh.
I'm gonna tell you what, that line is one of those things that kind of makes me laugh a little bit, because when you look in the comment section of these posts, it's not Black people who are offended by it. There are white people who are very upset about that, but the vast majority of Black people, at least in the posts that I've seen, were laughing their ass off about it.
Girl, I thought it was a very funny nod to Pennywise's sick, twisted little humor that he has about him. I was not offended at all.
I saw the funniest cartoon. It was actually like a little cartoon. It wasn't just like a animation, I guess I should say. It was like all the horror figures sitting at a table, and Pennywise tries to defend it, and then you just see him going over to a corner, and Freddy is already there, because Freddy had almost exactly the same line in, like, I think it was Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 or 4.
That's funny. He's like, come on over. I'm already in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, of all the things Pennywise has done, saying that is the least of my worries.
Yeah, some people actually were pointing out, technically speaking, been revealed that like Pennywise prefers to have people who have been terrorized.
He likes his
it makes them taste better.
Yeah,
with everything that people of color have to go through in this world, that especially in this country, that it logically it makes sense.
It does make sense. And my last note here was that phone didn't deserve that. All right, so we move on to Dick. Oh my gosh, Chris Chalk. Every scene he was in was amazing. So we get a shot of him. He's diving into his old granddad bourbon and I wrote here, seeing hella dead people.
Did he really have old granddad?
Yeah, he did. Which is part of the
hilarious
universe. Yes.
Well, what makes me laugh about it was that he hated his old granddad.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that was the name of his bourbon is really funny.
No, that old granddad, I just finished Insomnia, which you were right, Mandy. That book was good, but it could have been about 150 pages shorter. But I did like it.
It's great because it will cure yours. It will cure your insomnia.
It was good. I liked it, though. But they mentioned old granddad bourbon in it.
Funny.
And I was like, I think I've seen that in a few other things. So I like that little nod. But I like this. I did like this scene between Leroy and Dick. Dick is struggling. The dead people will not shut up. And you can see it is really taking its toll on Dick. And he tries to blame Leroy for everything, that his mind is all messed up, which I think that blame should be placed on Shaw, but whatever. So Dick is literally about to end his life, and Leroy gets through to him by by telling him that, Will is missing. And he's like, I promise I will find a way to help you. And I love that line, I'll even pull the trigger myself, saying, look, if we can't figure this out, I will help you in any way that I can. I just like that black male camaraderie dynamic that we got in that scene, and later on at the end of the episode too.
Yeah, one of the things that I thought was interesting is because the trope about him being, or the plot point about Leroy being without fear aside, one of the great things about this season was the dynamic between Leroy and Dick Halloran and how very different they were as people. And I think it bears out still through to the end. Leroy has a great deal of respect for Dick. I don't think there's the romantic aspect that we weren't sure may or may not be part of it in the first episode. I don't think it was that at all. After seeing everything play out, I think that in his mind, Leroy was the man that he wished he could be.
He was enamored by him.
Yeah.
I do still think he was attracted to Leroy, but I think I said this when we discussed this the first time around. I didn't see it as much as a physical, sexual kind of attraction, but more just an attraction of this. Dick is looking at the Hanlons through like window shopping. Like this is the family I want. This is the life I want. This guy has his shit together. It's a beautiful wife, his kid.
Yes,
and I think that's why he was attracted to the Hanlons as a whole, but to Leroy less than it being a sexual thing.
Yeah. By the way, one of your floater friends, your little ghost friend, zipped by your head.
I just missed it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, hey, Rich.
Don't bring that back.
No, Rich is cool. Rich can come and
let's just hope it's Rich.
Hang out with me.
Yes, I agree. I think it's just like, and I think he had him on a little bit of a pedestal. And I also think that Leroy had Leroy on a little bit of a pedestal. I mean, part of it is he was a superior officer. He was a little bit older. He did have a family. He was more grown up than Dick. But I think he also had a little bit of blindness to why Dick might have been the way he was.
He's naive.
Yes, I think that Leroy was very naive in the beginning. And I think that very interesting scene that we're talking about, a lot of that is because the dynamic is shifting a little bit there. Mm-hmm. Suddenly, Leroy is desperate and he needs something from Dick. And Dick is having to be the strong one instead of doing what he normally does, which is just thinking of himself.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, I love that.
So next section I just have here, fucking Shaw. I don't really have anything to say other than Shaw's a dick. Colonel Douche comes in, says Leroy's gone, and Shaw's like, I don't care. But when he hears that Dick is with him, he doesn't look happy. So that's about as much. And I want to say, I love James Remar. I really do.
Oh, he did a great job.
I love his acting. I think he did a great job in the role that he was given with what he was given, but I don't think.
I'll just say here, I didn't like. I'm not in love with the way that the military plot played out. There was so much of it that just made no sense. So Same. I love his acting. It's still, even after everything wrapped up, they didn't do his character right. Even as a villain, there was just huge things that made no sense.
Yeah. So we head over to Rose's place. There was some stuff in this section, whatever, that I really liked, but also I felt this is the one part, as much as they crammed into the battle, this felt like they were trying so hard to cram too much into one little section.
Too much exposition. That happened several times in this episode.
It bothered me. I will give Taylor Page her flowers for the way she just perfect acting as a mom who just found out that her kid has disappeared, and it's because her husband is a dumbass and was so focused on the mission. I did like that they finally let her let go on Leroy. That was very well acted.
Yeah. He needed that. But one of the notes that I have for that big meeting was Taylor Page looks exactly how I feel with this mess, because she's just lit there looking at everybody like, mm-hmm.
Yeah. But they come up with the idea that if Dick can find the artifact, that they can get it put back in its place. And this is where everything just kind of seemed really fast. I did like the overview of the map that shows the pillars. So we got like a visual of what that looks like over Derry. Finally.
Yes.
And then Rose is explaining that they have to get to the tree before it can reach a certain point. I was like, okay, I get that they're trying to set up what's coming, but it felt like they were holding our hand and walking us through.
Perfectly said. Here's how I felt about it. This was yet another example of they had too many irons in the fire this season. They took big swings, which is why the parts that really worked, but it's also why the parts that didn't. They waited until the last episode to give us any insight into what the native population knew about this thing and what to do. And that is a disappointment. Like, especially having talked to Kimberly Guerrero and finding out, I mean, I've liked her in so many different things. When I really dialed in on who she was, I was amazed at how many different roles I know her from. And she is a phenomenal actress. She was a really good hire on their part. It's disappointing that they didn't cut away some of this other stuff
and give that more time that it deserved.
Yes, it would have made all of this make more sense. It would have gone much further to alleviate this reputation that a lot of popular media has, where they just have native people show up to be the quote unquote magical Indian to lead other people to safety. If we had gotten to know more about them, to know more about some of the characters, to give them some names at least, other than her and Taniel. And again, this is where we've said the last several episodes, hopefully we're going to get another few seasons. That's something I would really, really like them to correct.
Yep.
Don't make the native population just a handy prop to help you move your plot along.
Tell their story. Tell their full story. Let us get to know these people from each cycle. Has passed this information on. Just, yeah, they deserved a lot more. And I'm sad that we didn't get it. But I do hope, as I've said in several episodes, that if they do get picked up, they will, like you just said, right the ship, give this group what they deserve.
Just the same way we got to know the Hanlon family, and just the same way we got to know the Grogan family. I want to know what Rose's family is like.
Yeah.
And I'll get off this soapbox now, but yeah, that is one thing. That scene was one of several where I felt like they were shoving in so much exposition so that we actually can have some kind of clue of what's all playing out. But it would have been much better if some of this had just been revealed over the course of the season.
I agree. Completely agree with you. So she makes him some tea from the Maturin root, and it will connect him with the dagger's energy. And I liked where Dick's talking to her, and he's like, and this will quiet the voices. And she says, when one door closes, another opens. I don't know why. Just that line delivered from Kimberly Norris Guerrero, it just was so, it's one of my favorite lines of life. Like, you know, when one door closes, another opens.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. That just really, I loved her delivery.
That is where they got it right. Like, that is a subtle way, not just in life to have a good philosophy, but it also is true of this greater Stephen King mythos lore that they were going to start getting into, and apparently is going to be played out over the next couple of seasons, about how things work in the dimension that Pennywise is from. And it was just a small little line, but I'm guessing we're going to flash back to that line several times more throughout the next few seasons, because I think it's an important part of understanding how that works, how all of that's going to work.
My last note here, 2 notes. One is right as Rose is delivering the most important message that Dick Halloran will ever need to receive, of course, it kicks in and we have no idea what
She was
is
saying.
said.
That was funny.
And then I said, Dick looks like me after I once hit a joint that I did not know was laced with something else. That scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, I bet it did.
Yeah. Ooh.
What was it laced with?
I forget what it's called. Starts with an H. Not heroin.
Hash.
Hash.
It reminded me of the one and only time in my life that I took mushrooms. It was the worst night of my life, and
I don't like
it was a terrible idea.
My anxiety, me taking shrooms or acid, you might as well just have Pennywise come down to dead like me, because that's how I'm going to be.
That's what it feels like. Yeah, no, it was very much like your Ingrid when they drug her away to Juniper Hill. At least for me, it was awful. I had a friend who was like, "Oh, it's natural. You'll be fine." And then an hour and a half later, I'm vomiting up stuff in the toilet. And it looked like, you remember that scene?
Oh, no.
No. It's not going to get graphic. You remember that scene from Dumbo where he's seeing the pink elephants?
Yes.
I was seeing that. I was seeing that.
So bad.
It was not good. It was not good. It was like the magic eye, but like if you were like in my mind, it was like if I could finally see what's there, I'm going to see Pennywise or something like that.
Right.
It was awful, awful, awful. I've called the biggest burnout. He wasn't a good guy, quite frankly. He was a friend's boyfriend who I genuinely could not stand and was really not a good dude. But he had done more drugs than anybody I knew. So I made him come over and yell at me all night to tell me about how this is going to be over soon, and pretty soon I'm going to be back working in the restaurant that Becky and I used to work for, pissed off because I'm having to wait tables and go get people salads and stuff. We needed a real expert to come in, and he did. I gotta say, he stepped up to the plate. Yeah, never did that again, but that is what Dick was reminding me of when he was there.
I like the segue where we're in Dick's mind and it flashes to the view of Marge driving the truck. And Ronnie made me mad here. So Ronnie's yelling at her to go faster, and more Matilda Gold, it's a fucking milk truck. I'm going as fast as I can. And then Lily is like, pothole, and they hit the pothole. And then Ronnie's yelling at her. And I'm like, I wrote here, girl, you just told her to go faster, distracted her so she didn't see the pothole, and now you're mad at Marge? ?
I did like that's a pothole thing, not a one-eye thing.
Yeah,
that's what I meant about. I loved it because it reminded me of the many times I've had to defend my driving.
Oh, it's making me think. I have to go to the airport after this to get Amy and Kate's car. They were running late, had to leave it in short-term parking. And I'm like, it's night, it's raining. Let's hope all of us make it back.
If y'all knew Becky, you knew that whether she hits anybody or not, she might physically get out and punch somebody because that stresses her out so bad.
I hate it so much.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same these days. Neither one of us has any business being on the road at night.
No.
Speaking of deadlights, that's all I see most of the time.
Seriously, that's what it looks like. It's and then you add water to the roadway, and it's like, worse. This is even better, because now not only is it like this bright light, but now they're waving, and it's awesome.
And that's all you see. Yeah.
So we get a quick glance of Lily's escalating behavior holding the dagger, which we were right about that, which we learn more about later. So we go back to what I'm calling Dick's tripping. I thought that was really neat, the way they did the shot of him screaming, and then his mouth, it just like keeps repeating over and over again.
Yes, that is very much what it felt like the one time I hallucinated.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So he catches on that the girls have the dagger, and I wrote here, Hank's freaking out that Ronnie is going after Will. And in parentheses, not gonna lie, I legit forgot about Hank for a minute.
I did too.
I was like, oh yeah,
there's a lot going on.
He's still here. Okay, cool. So Rose is like, we have to go. And Hank's like, why wouldn't they be safe if they have the dagger? And that's when we get the explanation that the dagger is just a fragment of the vessel. And the further you take it away, the harder it fights to get back to its home.
Maybe you can clarify this for me, but that was one of the times that I just felt like they just made no sense, that they were just making this up as they went along. And here's why. First of all, it's not like she had it like in the original spot that it fell to earth. She had it in a safe in her house. Secondly, aren't all of the pillars made of the ship that landed?
Yes.
So why does it need to specifically be back in its little hiding place in Rose's house?
I don't know. And I didn't think about that. I just thought, okay, well, at least that explains the end.
It's not a good explanation.
But no, you're right. It's not the best. But kind of like locking Leroy's fear in a box. I'm locking a lot of logical, rational
There's too many times that this
things
happened.
missed in another box. So, but no, you're right. But they tried. I'll give them a C plus for this.
Yeah,
Because it led to a really
Yes.
great freaking moment.
I knew that's what you were getting at.
That is my point with the show, is that they really missed the boat on a lot of things, but like the military, which we'll get to, but they ended up giving us,
Some really good stuff.
yes. So
Yes.
I'm willing to forgive this. Plus it gave us more Rose.
Yes, I loved I don't have even a problem with it as a plot point. It's just, again, one of those things that if we're going to introduce this at the last minute, they should have had more exposition laid out through the series itself
Yeah.
to make it make more sense. I love the way we got where we got with it. I just didn't think that specific explanation made a whole lot of sense given what we were given in the season.
Yeah, it felt rushed.
Yeah, it did. And it just felt hammed in. But it also, though, does fall in line with my theory about them trying to apply some of the rules from the greater Stephen King universe. Whether that's intentional or not, I don't know. But it does very much fall in line with what we found out about alien technology in the Tommyknockers.
Yeah, which I have not seen or read. So
Stephen King hates it. I found that out this week. I didn't realize that it was one he wrote when he was super duper on cocaine, and he said that it's like his least favorite now. But I find that shocking because I actually really enjoyed it.
interesting.
Yeah.
So this next section I'm calling Lily's Precious. We get back to the girls. Lily is holding on to that dagger like it is her only
She ain't
child.
playing.
And I'm glad that Ronnie and Marge start catching on that something isn't right with that dagger. And they try to get it, and Lily freaks the fuck out, which Claire Stack, excellent acting.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the fight scene, so to speak, and that it was Ronnie who delivered that line that you're our fucking lifeboat. And once they got the dagger out of her hand, I had mixed feelings. It was like, oh, that's awfully convenient that quickly all of that washes away, kind of like how you felt once you were out of the deadlights, you're out of the deadlights. But I also liked that I feel like was the first time in this series since they met each other and found common ground that these three girls have finally
They're back.
connected back. Yeah. I liked the end result.
I agree. You said it perfectly. I don't love how quickly it all came about. It was very convenient, but at the same time, it was a good payoff to see them working together and realizing that they had to be a team and support each other to get the job done.
Yeah. And I like that Marge is like, yeah, we're going to take turns holding this from now on. Okay.
Yeah.
Smart girl.
Yeah.
And it also leads to a very cool shot of Pennywise. And I wrote here, Pennywise and his band of merry, deadlit children.
I liked that scene. That was one of the things that the fog gave us that was really cool.
Yes.
That was one of the visually, there were a lot of the CGI moments that I was not a huge fan of. This one was good.
I agree. So this I'm calling In a Van Down by the River.
Down by the frozen river.
Yeah. So Dick realizes where they're going, and I wrote here, Rose is being Debbie Downer, saying they're not going to make it in time, that Pennywise is too close to the hole in the gate. And Leroy has an idea that Dick can get into Pennywise's head. And I want to be like, Leroy, leave Dick alone.
He's been through enough.
The man is tripping balls right now. Now
Yes.
you want to say, hey, do you mind? That thing
Right.
that almost made you jump off the
Would you go on
helicopter.
and jump in his head?
Can you go ahead and do that again, please? But leads to a great scene later. So then we move on to what I am calling Ice Ice Baby. I had so much fun with these little titles.
I can tell.
This is where I've got 1.5 pages of notes about this section.
Well, it was a big part of it.
Holy shit. So I'm just going to kind of roll through what happened and we can talk about our feelings as we get there. It starts with the girls rushing up to the line of floating children to find Will, and they do. And Pennywise comes out, and this was like a mic drop moment of all of the things that Pennywise has said this season. He says, "Look who decided to join the circus. The fool, the freak, the failure. But who is who? It doesn't matter. There's a spot for you all." That was so good. And Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise, man, as much bullshit as they had him go through in a lot of these parts of these episodes, he was committed.
Yeah.
He gave it his all. And I tip my hat to him for that. I loved it.
Yeah, I'm glad. There was more CGI. It was the finale, and I think they were blowing a lot of their budget on this. But I do love that the last 2 or 3 episodes, we've gotten to see more of Bill Skarsgård's face and him actually acting and interacting with the kids. Then I can see the scariness of the character. I still believe the Tim Curry version is much scarier because technology was not as advanced then and they had to rely on him as a person in more scenes. But when we do get to have those real, not heavily CGI'd out scenes with Bill Skarsgård delivering his lines and interacting with the kids, like he's nailing it.
Yeah. If they do get 2 more seasons, y'all scale back the CGI and let the Pennywise, the horror, speak for itself. Like it did in the original miniseries. We don't need all the CGI.
Right. It takes something away.
It does. It kind of takes you out of it a little bit. But when I'm looking at, like you said, Bill Skarsgård, like when he was Bob Gray, I was like, this is the scariest I've ever seen.
Yes.
Pennywise. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But it did, I really also, speaking of creepy, and I almost felt the tension, and these 3 young ladies did a phenomenal job of going from relief that, okay, we used the dagger, he's gone, and another great use of the fog. He's running past them. They hear him giggling, that creepy Pennywise laugh. They don't know where he is. It just brought so much tension and like, what is about to happen? And then all of a sudden, Marge gets yanked away. And I'm very curious. This leads to a very interesting conversation. So he tells her he's always wondered how she tastes, and he calls her Margaret Tozier. I didn't like it.
I didn't.
She was obviously confused, and he's like, well, you don't understand now, but you will unless he dies with you. And then we see that missing poster of the 2000 It version, Richie, and Pennywise tells her that it's her son and his friends who will eventually see his demise. And I was like, why was this? Did they put this in here just as a nod to the fans?
No, they put it in there because they had to explain a lot of things that they didn't put through the last 8 episodes.
Why couldn't they have just
left it more mysterious?
Or brought up the deal that he doesn't see time the same way that we do or that Derry does? Here's why this was a problem for me. Because we know Marge grows up and they set the tone that Marge is a badass who I would think would grow into this amazingly strong woman. She doesn't leave Derry, but not once in the later iterations is it in any way, are we tipped off that Marge remembers any of this? Would you not warn your kid? I liked the way it brought us this multi-time dimension thing because it made a lot of things about Pennywise make sense. But I think him having her tell her, you have a kid and he grows up to kill me, and yet it has no impact on what the 2 movies this is based off. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. It just didn't make any sense.
No, I'm going to tag in here because I got lots of thoughts about this scene. On the one hand, the past, present, future thing, And I apologize if you already know this, but I'll just state it outright because I don't know that everybody listening knows this. That is apparently this is where we as viewers get some insight on where we may be going with this.
Yeah, the segue was great.
I don't agree that the segue was great.
I liked it. I think they set up the next 2 seasons very well.
They do that.
But they could have done it without. My hang up is can't make sense that Marge knows this, goes on with her life, seemingly
doesn't warn
as
Richie.
if none of this ever happened, and doesn't warn her child that,
Right.
hey, there's this crazy motherfucker out there that's gunning for you because you are going to end up being his,
Right.
you and your friends are going to end up being his demise.
Right.
I like the time, doesn't make sense to him. Even the line where he says, being caged in makes things confusing for me. All of that stuff could have come out fine without Marge, without bringing up Richie. I don't get it.
So the entire plot point that they're apparently going towards for the next couple of seasons is, because this is a question in everybody's mind, is how are you going to create a prequel and get people invested and on the edge of their seats when we already know exactly how it played out? Apparently, the showrunner's entire plan is that they are going to introduce this idea, which is canon in the Stephen King multiverse, that where Pennywise comes from and Maturin and all of these other characters that we've talked about in the past episodes, it is true. Past, present, and future at the same time. And I don't know enough about it to really intelligently drill down on exactly how that works. But that is canon in the Stephen King universe. Them bringing this into the plot is brilliant because now it makes sense. And I'm excited to see where they're going to go with this. But my first problem with all of this is that it was too much exposition in one scene. It was like you were talking about earlier, where they are just feeding us this information like we're baby birds, one bite at a time. And we didn't need Pennywise, who is famously like quippy, but he doesn't normally sit down and chat with people like they're his besties and offer this much insight into his own character. And why is he telling Marge? Because again, if time is past, present, future, whatever, wouldn't that be warning her? But I think it did do something they needed to do, which is to help us have some insight on where we are going from this and what Pennywise's end game might be. And it might be that it doesn't really matter if he tells her about Richie, because apparently he's going to try to create some kind of chaos. You can't stop something from happening, I guess, if it's your fate, but you can blow it up, basically. Like you can blow up that version of reality. And apparently his whole thing is going to go back and try to affect birth lines. That's not the word.
Lineage.
Yes, the lineage of the Losers Club. He's going to go back to these points where he was waking up from his sleep and try to mess with the lineage of the eventual final Losers Club. So we needed that. It was another point where maybe they should have been layering this in throughout the entire season instead of having Pennywise stop and give a Shakespearean soliloquy in the middle of this big battle.
Yeah.
But then the other part is exactly what you said. And it's true of Leroy Hanlon. And I don't want to jump ahead, but as we see at the end, what we know about those two characters from the first movie, unless you're going to really get into this theory of the multiverse where he's gone back and he's changed things, so it's not the same Marge and it's not the same Hanlon family because he's made incremental changes, so those people end up living in a different reality. Unless you're going to go that route, it doesn't make any sense. She's not the same. She didn't warn her kid. Leroy is not the same guy that he ends up being. So yeah, that's a huge plot hole.
It just bugged me a little bit. I did like the beep Margie.
I'd love that. I wrote that too.
And then he goes in for the kill and he freezes. And we
Love
don't know
that.
why. Well, not yet.
Yeah, right. We don't know yet.
But I thought that was really freaking cool.
And in the series that I have repeatedly criticized for having too much CGI, I actually thought that was a very good use of CGI.
It was, yes. I completely agree. And I wrote here in my notes, I appreciate that Marge doesn't stick around to kick it with frozen Pennywise.
Yes.
And immediately runs off back to the girls. And then they're like, what happened? And she says, I don't know. And I just wrote story of my life, girl. So once he's frozen, suddenly all the kids drop from the air and land on the ice. And I wrote here, I'm guessing there's going to be some broken bones. That fall looked super painful for those kids on that hard ice. Ugh.
I thought the same thing. You could hear some thunks and some clunks and people just like dropping. Again, though, like my biggest issue with that is everybody just gets up and they're like, huh, weird.
Yeah, well, they're dazed and confused at least.
Yeah, but it ain't nothing like the deadlights are supposed to be in the book and in the original series.
Kind of a terminal situation.
Like everybody looked like they'd be just fine if they got to just go home and, run through Starbucks and maybe shake it off a little bit.
Yeah. So everybody comes together now. We see Daniel directing the kids to the North Shore, and he and Leroy decide they're going to go take the dagger to the tree. And this is where I lost my fucking mind. They're almost there. Then ... fucking Shaw ... The military is there. They shoot Daniel and Leroy and attempt to get others. Poor Daniel. He deserves better.
That's your notes.
That's my notes on that little part.
Yeah.
I mean, damn. All of that could have happened. And the military didn't even need to show up. The only satisfying thing of the military showing up is that we get to see Shaw's head get bitten off.
Yeah.
Because everything that he did and said in that whole time was just stupid.
It's just stupid. I did say before we move past this that the government killing Daniel is the most accurate part of this series.
Yeah, 100%. And then he's just gone.
Yeah. Lost one of the very few native characters that you actually gave a name to. So, that was a choice for sure. I like that Hanlon finally trusted Will here.
Yes, and Will's like, I can't do it. And he's like, no, I'm not you. And Leroy finally has a conversation that he's been needing to have apparently for a long time with his son, is that I don't want you to be me. I want you to be you. And what you are is good and strong and amazing.
I like that.
That was a very brief redemption arc for Leroy, and I'm glad they gave it to him, and I'm glad that they gave the two of them that moment.
Yeah, I agree. I liked that. That was one of my favorite parts. And then I just wrote Shaw and exclamation point after everyone. Not exclamation point, period. Shaw makes no sense.
Yeah.
This makes no sense unless we had gotten more of like a apocalypse now. So, because again, this is where I think they just bit off more than they could chew. If we'd had a version of this story where we had seen more of Shaw in his private life and found out that he was deeply batshit crazy, kind of like a parallel with Ingrid Kirsch, like we needed to see more about what made him do something that was astronomically stupid with seemingly no real motivation behind it. Instead, it just seemed really dumb.
Yeah, because you get that scene where he's standing there with frozen Pennywise, and he says, I remembered you as a boy, but I wasn't sure if you were real or whatever. And then he's like, when Pennywise wakes up, and we'll go back and talk about that amazing scene that Dick pulled off. And he's like, it's okay, you can go. And then it's like, well, okay, Pennywise is just going to go.
Right. Like if you saw a random lion walking down the road, would you just let it run wild? Because just be like, hey, some people need killing and maybe the lion will get some good ones. And it just makes no sense.
And he also, Dick is very successful at being in Pennywise's head and doing a phenomenal job of making Pennywise think he's Bob Gray.
Oh, I loved that.
That was so good because I was very confused by that until we get the full picture. So kudos. That was a well-written, well-directed, and well-done scene. And then Shaw is an idiot and tips off Pennywise that whatever Dick's done to you, we're going to fix it. And that's what tips Pennywise off. I did love his line of shouting at the carnival owner, I'm a god, an eater of worlds. I'm not Bob Gray.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a god, an eater of worlds is going to be my reply the next time I'm asked to do some stupid bullshit at work.
It's definitely a song on our new band.
On our podcast or
Yeah.
album. Yeah. Uh, I I love running Pennywise. Like, that scene that showed him running right after this. Like,
Oh, yeah.
just something about Pennywise running that just makes me laugh.
Yeah.
I love Dick's idea of making him think that he's Bob Gray. I liked that whole scene. It was very funny, but also very clever and told you something about Pennywise, that one of his fears is being vulnerable and human. And
Hmm.
as much as he hates us, like, he doesn't have the courage to be as vulnerable as human beings are. And he's a little afraid of us as well. The only thing that I could say, though, is that I don't love how quickly it ended. And I felt like that Dick Halloran was going to be a much bigger part in taking Pennywise down. And maybe you can say that it was always going to be about the kids, but I guess I'm just disappointed that we went through all of this with Dick's character through the whole series. And then he really wasn't that effective in bringing Pennywise down. Pennywise brought him down more than the other.
But I'm okay with that because, and we're segueing into the big battle, so to speak. So Leroy is shot. Kimberly Guerrero did a great job when she sees Tanya laying there. Another great mini conversation with when Dick apologizes to Leroy that I'm sorry, I really did try,
Mm-hmm.
and that there's nothing that they could do. Want to give a minute to appreciate that Pennywise, he's starting to walk away from Shaw and he realizes who he is, and that line that he never forgets a smell, and that he transforms into that old man that Francis saw back in 1908, and then he eats his freaking head off. And I was like, okay, second most satisfying death in this show.
Loved it. Still didn't make any sense.
No, it didn't, but he's dead.
Very happy.
We needed that.
But why was Pennywise going to let him go until he remembered, oh, I scared you once when you were little? Satisfied for the ending. Didn't really make a lot of sense as far as motivation goes.
No. So we get a really cool shot where the kids are trying super hard to get the dagger to the tree. And my favorite shot of this whole episode was that Pennywise like skating across the ice in slow motion with that tense, dramatic horror genre music playing in the background. And, you know, he's fading in and out of the fog. You see all the adults watching in it. And I just wrote here, at this point, it's literally a race against time.
Yeah. That does bring up another point, though. Like, it was fog. How come all of a sudden there's snow everywhere?
Because it was wintertime.
Did the fog bring the wintertime?
Do you remember when the fog first came in and the leaves wilted and fell off the tree?
So it's a cold fog.
It was a winter fog.
Okay.
I think the episode would have been better titled Winter Fog.
Yeah.
But that's why it was so cold. So I text Kimberly this morning. She had posted her fight scene on Instagram.
So proud of her.
I sent her a message and I was like, you got your fight scene. You did so good. And she was like, oh, I loved it so much.
Yeah, I bet that was a lot of fun for her. And that was what I was thinking. That's one of the great things about having this podcast and being blessed enough to interview the people that we have is you get to see these scenes sometimes from a different perspective. And I was mostly thinking every time I saw her throughout this episode, how grateful I was she was getting so much screen time, and also like how fun this must have been for her.
Yeah, it was very cool. To sum up the rest of this, what I thought they did really well is, you know, Pennywise is getting closer to the kids. They're obviously struggling. And he gets that great line of "so long, losers."
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, part of his head is missing, which we find out that they got guns and Leroy's trying to slow him down. They know it's not going to kill him, but they're trying to slow him down. And I thought it was a very nice touch. You think a clown scares me, a Jack-in-the-Box clown is even worse. So I loved that when his head was coming back that he popped out like a Jack-in-the-Box. It just, I don't know why these little subtle things.
No, I loved it.
Stood
Another
out.
good use of the CGI, and it also was a very good use of humor. That's kind of the calling card of the character without it being over the top stupid. It was very much in keeping with Pennywise's character to do something like
Yeah.
that. And you're right, Jack in the Box clowns are the creepiest.
So creepy. So the kids are almost there. Pennywise is trying to get to him because Leroy got deadlit.
I want to say that I did write down, they just be deadlighting everybody these days.
Right. Like it's the flu.
Right.
It's like, I can't come to work today. I got deadlit. I should be fine in
like
27 years.
Yeah.
Rose hears that melodic tone and Dick senses something too. And we see Sesqui standing there. And I thought, okay, well, this is cool. She's going to have some important part. And then my heart fell. I cried when Little Rich stepped beside her, holding her hand. And that little subtle acting between Dick, Chris Chalk, and Kimberly Guerrero was simple, but so powerful, adding to the beauty of seeing one of our favorite characters coming back to life. And I think it was a nice nod to Stanley Uris' spirit in the 2000s iterations that he comes back to help his friends.
Yeah. One thing though, like, does Rose have the shine? Does that mean Rose has the shine because she could see Sesqui?
I don't think she could, because she looked at Dick and she said, "What do you see?" And he said, "A miracle." So I think she sensed something was happening. She heard,
but not seeing it,
but she didn't see it. So that's why she asked Dick, "What did you see?"
See, both times I saw it, I took it as she saw it, but it surprised her, and she wanted to know if Dick was seeing the same thing she did.
See, I don't.
But I could be wrong. I'm going to go back and rewatch it when we get done here because I am curious about that. Either way, it was just a question I had. I was like, "Oh, does that mean that Rose has the shine?" Again, really wanted to see more Rose in this season, so it would have been a very interesting and normal and fascinating thing to have be part of her character. I mean, it would be a good reason she'd be on the Matron Friends of Matron group, but I wanted to talk a little bit about something that I'm completely unqualified to really get into, but that has never once stopped me in my life. It's that there is this concept that is in the greater Stephen King universe called the quartet. And it is important to why it is always these groups of kids that end up bringing Pennywise down. A quartet is this idea of fated band of people, and it's not as effective if there is a member of the quartet that is not
there. Yeah.
Yes. So that was very cool. And I wish that, and hopefully in seasons to come, that's something that they'll expound on more, is this idea of that is why we keep having these groupings. And that is why it was important to have Stanley's character do that in the movie, and then to have good old Rich, everybody's favorite little lover boy, come back in this scene.
I thought it was great. I thought it was really cool to see. He runs past Pennywise and flips him off. I was like, oh, that's
Loved
so cool.
It. Like, I was riveted.
The gifts that is creating out there are giving me life right now. So thank you, Internet.
Yeah, they nailed that scene. It was so true to his spirit of the character. It was just awesome. Loved it.
It was so great.
Yeah.
And I did like the shot too of once Rich gets there, they're all struggling to get the dagger into the tree, and Pennywise is transforming into that giant bird creature, and you see him behind him, and it was intense. I knew they were going to get it, but it was still intense.
It was another place that it looked like, that I talked about in that one scene where Leroy and Will were in the river. And I'd said that it kind of looked like a graphic novel almost, the way that the color was. Same thing here. This was another excellent use of the CGI. Totally worked here. The eeriness of it. The fog swirling around. I know there is a classical painting that was, I don't know which one it is. I've tried to rack my brains to try to think about what to even Google to find it. But I definitely think they took some inspiration from a classical painting of Satan It was awesome. It was totally like made you feel the tension of, is that thing going to get them before they can get this thing in the tree, in the magic tree?
The magic tree.
Yeah.
And then we get Pennywise. He does get his last line in, and he's like, lively crowd. And then he disintegrates into the balls of light and disappears. But I do like that as he's going through his transition, that he's shedding his faces.
Yeah, we saw Pickle Dad one more time.
Yeah, they gave us Pickle Dad. We even got Demon Baby back.
Yeah.
Baby.
His little chubby cheeks.
And then it comes back to Pennywise's face, and then he just disintegrates. I thought that was another great use of the CGI, because it made me feel like they were showing us Pennywise's
devolving.
There you go. That's a good
The
word.
same way that he evolved from the beginning, you could see him devolving back into whatever it is that goes and lays in the bloodbath for 27 years.
Yeah.
I do think, though, one thing that, and I don't know how much it really took away, but it is a question I had, is why did, and maybe I answered my own question with the whole quartet plot point, but it was kind of like, why did Rich get to come back, but Phil and Susie and Maddie and what was Stanley Uris's uncle's name? Ralph? Was it Ralph?
Yeah, I think it was Ralph.
Why did they not all get to come back?
See, because they weren't necessary. They weren't part of the quartet.
Yeah, I think I answered my own question. Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody's celebrating, but poor Rose, great acting, Kimberly Guerrera, is obviously mourning over the loss of Taniel. And again, I don't think he got his just due. This would have been a great opportunity, contrasting Rich's funeral with Taniel's funeral, maybe showing how the indigenous tribes, how their, burials, their rituals. It just would have been a great opportunity to show.
To make them more fleshed out parts of the entire story, instead of just somebody that you called when you needed a little magic inserted.
They could have done more. But yeah, so all of that is over and done, and we're at Rich's funeral. And did you notice Marge's eulogy was from Bill Denborough's book?
No.
Yeah. I'm not going to take credit for that. I didn't notice that until I was actually looking for images for the episode cover on Spotify.
Well, hold on. I need to look that up. Give me a second. Oh, some fans suggested Marge wrote Bill's speech in the book.
But it's what she says is what he wrote in the book. I don't know if she influenced it 27 years down the road.
That's what I'm looking to see. Oh, yeah. Okay. Very cool.
Isn't that neat?
Yeah.
When I heard it, I was like, that's just absolutely beautiful and so fitting for this little misfit group of friends.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what exactly that it meant that it was from one of Bill's books, but it looks like basically the writers paraphrased.
Yeah.
It wasn't word for word, but they took a lot from that. Yeah, so that's very cool.
Yeah. I loved the Dick moment here where he goes and sits next to Rich's parents, and just a nice nod to direction where Rich's dad has his hand aimed at that shoulder that Rich's hand is on. Like he could feel something there. And Dick sits down and tells him, yes, he's there with you and he always will be. And they're like, who are you? And he's like, I'm still working on that.
I like that line.
I just loved that the whole funeral thing was just sad, but so beautifully sweet.
It was cathartic. I will say, throw this in the bucket of them, my general complaint of them introducing too many plot points to really do enough credit to. I like the idea that this season showed Dick Halloran going from a brash, cocky, fairly selfish young man, even though, again, through everything he'd been through in his life, makes total sense that he would be, to being a more humbled, shaken, and not having to be braggadocious and cocky, like having real strength within himself. And I like him accepting his gifts instead of trying to run away from them. But I also don't know that it makes a lot of sense how they explained it. Like, okay, he drank the tea and now he's not terrified and he only sees dead people that he wants to see. Is that?
I don't think it worked like that. He asked Rose, this will help quiet the voices. What I think it did is gave him back that strength or whatever he used at age 9 to learn to lock those bad things away. Because we learn in The Shining how he's learns to control it.
He can control it, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think they did a good enough transition from, like, when he was a kid, he didn't see them at all anymore because he locked all of it away. So he wasn't seeing dead people anymore at all.
Right. And I think now he's learned to lock the bad away.
I agree with you. I just don't think that they did a good enough job of explaining that.
Oh, okay.
Just feel like it's one of those things that it could have been fleshed out a little bit more. I agree with you. I think that's where they were going with it. I just don't feel like, given his part in the plot of the series and what we saw of Dick Halloran's story, that they did a good enough job of really explaining, other than just magic tea, how he got from seeing like all of these horrible ghosts to he only sees Sesquay, and then now he can see Rich at Rich's funeral in the middle of a graveyard where theoretically there are dozens and dozens of less sweet ghosts.
Yeah,
around.
I didn't question it. It just made sense to me. It's Maturin root. We know what big powers the Maturin world is supposed to hold.
Yeah.
It made sense to me. And I don't think that it's not that he doesn't see bad dead people. I just think it's all a matter of control, and whatever that root did for him helped him silence enough that he can function and control what he sees when he sees it.
I think you're right. I just don't agree that I think that it leaving it with just here, drink this cup of tea was not enough. There's a term called deus ex machina, and it's from Greek theater, where it's this idea that a lot of times in Greek theater, they would just have a god show up at the end and basically wake him a magic wand and solve all of these unsolvable problems from the plot. That felt like deus ex machina to me. Without more seeing how the learning to control came about, I just felt like it was just a very convenient plot point.
Yeah, I could see your point, but it didn't bug me at all. And
Gotcha.
It led to a great moment.
It really did. Yeah, it was a beautiful scene.
All right. So in closing is what I have here. So we kind of get wrap ups on what everybody's doing. Marge is walking down Main Street and sees one of Rich's planes in the tree. And I just wrote here, he really did make it.
Yeah, I did too. He finally made it to Main Street.
Loved that scene of Lily going to the cemetery to visit her dad and telling him that she's better now and that she's made some friends. I was like, damn.
Well, that kind of reminded me of Carrie too, by the way. That scene, was I the only one that was waiting for a hand to come up out of that?
I didn't know. I didn't even think of it at the moment, but you were right. That would have been great.
But I wrote here, sorry I haven't been around much, Pickle Dad. I've been fighting a killer clown.
Yeah. Who turned into you?
Really awkward.
We follow them to the standpipe. Marge opens up about what Pennywise said to her in the fog. And I'm glad there was at least a conversation had about it, that it didn't just end with Pennywise having that conversation with Marge.
Yeah.
Still not a fan, but it does lay the groundwork.
It does.
I just wrote here. So she questions that what if he can go backwards, and that now this sets up the going backwards timeline. And I loved Lily's line that I guess it'll be somebody else's fight. I loved that.
I loved the look on their faces after that, where they were deeply worried. Like, you could tell they had been kind of celebrating before with their little sody pops, their fizzolas or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then you could tell like that thought was deeply unsettling to them, that now he can go back in time and he could potentially manipulate things so that we never exist.
Right.
And that is a deeply unsettling thought. So I love the look on both of those actresses' faces at that point. That was some great acting.
That was a good catch.
I wish they'd done more to lay it out throughout the season instead of just hitting us all over the head with it here at the end.
Right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
We get Dick's fate. He goes to visit Leroy and say goodbye. He's going to go work as a chef at a hotel and says, how much trouble can a hotel be? And I wrote here, oh, Dickie.
Oh, Dick.
They share a hug, and I wrote down, it's just nice to see how this friendship has grown. And he's like, stay in touch, keep in touch. But as we know, when you leave Derry, you forget.
Well, maybe not. I mean, if you're Dick Halloran, you might not.
That's true.
I loved that they brought The Shining in at the end. I would absolutely love to see Chris Chalk in a
Dick Halloran spinoff. I will watch it. We will cover it.
Yes.
It will happen.
Yeah, I would love that. I didn't so much. Again, it was yet another scene where I felt like they were laying out way too much.
Oh, I thought it was great.
No, I don't know. It just like we already knew he was Dick Halloran going to the Overlook Hotel. I just felt like it was a little bit too on the nose. But I loved the idea of it. I loved that he brought it up. I loved that that's what he's doing. And 100% want to see that spinoff.
Hell yeah.
With Chris Chalk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If it's not Chris Chalk, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So the Grogan family, thank God. I was so glad to see Mama Grogan. Glad that she wasn't forgotten, eaten, or just written off as
love seeing
nothing.
her.
And they are escaping to the north with Charlotte and Rose's help. And I loved that shot of Ronnie with her head out of the car, hanging out of the car window, just eating her suckers, just enjoying the sun.
Being a kid.
It was so great.
Suckers. I don't think you understand, Becky. She's like revolutionized my life with that scene with the two suckers. Why have I just been walking around?
You've never done that? Man, no. You take a cream. I don't know what flavors of Dum Dums you like, but take your two favorite flavors of Dum Dums and eat them together. And a lemon
at the same time. I want to do that.
It'll rock your world.
Yeah. Well, in addition to vastly expanding my palate, that scene was amazing because just the look on her face, and she just looked like a kid again. And that was a hard-earned happy ever after. And I'm not sorry that that's how Grogan's story played out and we were wrong and it didn't end violently. I don't know so much how I feel about the Hanlons, which we're about to get into.
Yeah, the only good thing I can say about the Hanlon's decision is at least they gave us an explanation as to why Leroy is a farmer in the later iterations. And I did also love seeing Charlotte and Leroy when she I don't like that it was her decision to stay. I don't think that made sense for Charlotte. And you sent me that article where she wasn't too happy.
Yeah, Taylor Page was not a fan of that choice either.
Yeah, at all. That didn't make a lot of sense, but I did like that he was like, what if I thought we decided we were going to stop with the missions and that stuff? And she's like, but what if we do it together? And I was like, okay. And then their little flirty Hanlons. I'm glad we got a glimpse back of what made their marriage great and strong. And that's just their love for each other and doing things together. I did like those two pieces of it, but
I liked it.
I liked Will's delivery when he's writing the letter to Ronnie. He's like, well, they say if you leave, you forget. Well, I'm going to be here, so I'll make sure you don't forget. It was just a nice little touch.
I love that. I love that they got their little kiss at the end. In a different series, I would have liked this ending for the Hanlons. One of my critiques of this ending is that the body count was too low. You know, some of these characters that we love, you don't want to think about like, I want this character that I really enjoyed to die, but it is a horror show. And I felt like we really pulled some punches. For as shocking as the first episode was, and that's what hooked you in, I feel like there were too many happy endings to really feel the full horror of how evil and terrible Pennywise is. It's not that I specifically wanted Charlotte Hanlon to die. It's not that I wanted Hank Grogan to die. It just made more sense in the Derry Pennywise 27-year cycle. And I also just think that was absolutely out of character for Charlotte. And the decision was stupid. This were like the Goonies or Stranger Things. it would have been an awesome wrap up for that story. It just feels like a pulled punch. And it also just genuinely doesn't make sense in the story of the 27 years later version, what we know of the Hanlon family. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I didn't mind that there were so many happy endings because, what gets lost sometimes in the Stephen King universe, especially after just listening to Insomnia, is that what drives these good people is their community.
Mm-hmm.
The emotional connections that they make along the way. That's what ends up saving a lot of these people.
Yeah.
Be it sacrifice or propping somebody up, whatever. So I liked that what started in episode 1 as a full-on hardcore punch with losing all those kids right then and there, and then to close it out with seeing these people, at least we assume for 27 years, have some minute level of peace among them.
I think that also fits with it, that a lot of them got a happy ending. I just felt like some of the horror was lost by holding on to almost every single character that we actually cared about. More practically, it doesn't make any sense.
No, them staying doesn't make sense.
It would have made a lot more sense how Leroy Hanlon ends up becoming if he had lost Charlotte, if Will had been deeply affected by the deadlights. But this version of the ending just makes it seem like they just kind of ride off into the sunset and end up having just this wonderful, perfect, and it's all water under the bridge.
I understand it doesn't make sense other than they are buying Rose's farm and staying there to where we end up. But I'm not too mad about it because there's a whole other cycle that comes, and we know how those cycles affect people. We know that Leroy isn't the man of no fear like we thought. So it would make sense to me that during the course of these 27 years leading up to what happens to Mike Hanlon later on, that shit would go down to harden, especially a Black man in these times. So I don't know. It wasn't great, but it didn't lose me. So we get the shot of them leaving Derry, and we get the welcome to the "You're now leaving Derry" sign. And then ominously, as the TV show emblem shows up, chapter 1 pops up.
Yes.
So I was like, interesting. And then we get what I found extremely satisfying. I see a lot of mixed reviews of this on the internet, but I'm calling it Hey Bev. So we're at Juniper Hill with Ingrid, and she's having a little bit of a panic moment. And the orderlies put a song on the record player, and she calms down. And then we fast forward to October of 1988, which is 26 years later, right before It Wakes Again. And we get older Ingrid, who is the same actress who played her in chapter 2 of the 2000s movies. And she wanders upon Elfrida Marsh. I did think it was funny, the cop saying, no, this time she's really dead. I was like, why did that make me laugh out loud?
I didn't hear that. How many times has she pretended to be dead?
I'm guessing this is not her first attempt at ending her life. So when he said that, I was like, okay, that's not funny, but that's...
If I'd heard that, I would have laughed.
It's a funny line to throw in there. And then you get the two people crying on the ground. You see the young girl who gets basically an elbow in the face by the lovely man she's trying to console. And she turns around and it's Beverly Marsh. And Ingrid delivers that amazing line that, don't worry, dear, exactly what she says to her in the chapter 2 is no one in Derry ever really dies. And then it fades to black.
You know, I was about to have a problem with that, and I've been waiting to talk about this because I was going to say, okay, but how did she not remember that when she saw her in the future? And now
she
I just
Derry.
Smacked me in the face. Yes, duh.
Yep.
Okay, I'll give you guys that one. I was thinking that was yet another plot hole, and that makes total sense. Do you know that lady died 2 months after that was filmed?
No.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that she was...
Yeah, I am glad she got to have, like, because I think that probably was her biggest role. as far as I know. And so, yeah, good for her.
All right. Well, that was our episode. Final thoughts. I'm going to give my final thoughts on the entire season. It was a yay. I just wrote here, not everything worked, but I feel we got one of the best versions of the story that's out there. And what worked really, really worked well enough that what didn't work, I am okay just brushing to the side. My MVP is Rich. The best written character is Dick. The worst storyline ever is 98% of the military story. And I left 2% because it gave us Dick and Leroy's introductions. And the best storyline was Bob Gray, getting to meet Bob Gray and seeing him in 1908 and how it got to him. And runner up would be All Things Dick. I think it was just phenomenal acting. These characters, I said it before, in the hands of other people, this could have been a disaster, but they pulled off some really bold, sometimes not great writing to really draw you into the story. It was CGI heavy, and I wish that they would have leaned a little bit more to Bill Skarsgård's natural talents and let that shine. But I really do hope we get 2 more seasons and they get us all the way back to 1908, because I was really worried when you suggested we cover this show, but I am sitting here now thanking you for suggesting it because I really enjoyed this way more than I thought. And I give this season 4 headless Shaws out of 5.
I always love your ratings. You inspire me. Despite all of the criticisms that I have, I loved this series. I thought it was a lot of fun. In the world that we're living in, the real world being as stressful and full of monsters as it is, this was a very cathartic kind of thing to do through the winter. Enjoyed at least most of every single episode, and some of them I've thought were just absolutely great TV. Every criticism I have, I'm not even like at the end of it. I can't even say like I'm disappointed. As I said over and over again, like throughout this episode, when I would offer a criticism, I kept saying like, maybe I'll get to the very end of this and I'll feel completely differently. And some of the things I did. And so I'm hoping that these plot points, that these holes that I'm talking about, give them 2 more seasons to let them work that out and to make them make sense. So maybe that's what we get over the next 2 seasons. Whatever we get, I'm on board. I can't wait for it. I'm really, really hopeful and just super glad that we did this show. I'm going to give it 4.5 splattered principles out of 5. I'm ready for the next season, like right now.
Yeah, same. So we don't have confirmation that they have officially been greenlit for another season, let alone 2. But as you just heard, we both certainly hope that they do. So we'll see what happens. So we got some feedback this week. We got 2 voicemails, one from Sam and one from Steve. First up is Sam. Let's hear what she thought about this finale.
Hi, Rexos. We did it. We're at the end. Becky, you did it. The non-horror movie watcher. You did it.
You're right. I did.
You did.
I thought it was a great ending to the season. I can't imagine what I would have wanted more other than, you were right, Mandy, I would have loved the shoe poem. And even though we didn't get the shoe poem, we did.
Now I'm mad about that all over.
Just being the MVP of the entire season. I mean,
I
agree with the internet. That scene where Pennywise pauses and he flips on Pennywise.
Yeah.
Epic. It probably is my favorite scene of the entire series.
Yeah.
And such a beautiful thing that he came back to help his friends, and sticking with the it lore that it was the children who ultimately knew had to defeat him. I mean, even in chapter 2, it's the children that are grown up. And so I really liked how all the characters intersected in such a beautiful, thoughtful way. And I see all of that coming. And so every character was important. and they all played a role at the end, and I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. It made me cry. Like so many times, it made me cry seeing Rich appear. And, without Halloran, we wouldn't have necessarily been able to see him. I mean, maybe just we'd have to suspend disbelief. And then, we see the funeral, which is when I also cried. I sobbed. I actually had to pause because I was crying so hard of him comforting Will and his parents. And like, oh gosh, I can't go too into details. I'm gonna start crying again. And it was just beautiful. And we get to see the Halloran that we saw in The Shining and Doctor Strange. Like we got to see that part of him grow and find his purpose. Just like Rose said, the Maturin route is going to show you all the things, but not everything you're going to see is evil. And that's true. He saw Rich. So it was just really wonderful. I appreciated it. I liked that Shaw met an ugly end because it was his hubris. I mean, he was trying to talk to Pennywise like he was some sort of dog or something. It's like, he's going to eat. What are you talking about?
Fucking Shaw.
And so everyone, it was just fantastic. R.I.P. Taniel. Of course, an Indigenous child is going to be sacrificed because of white people's hubris and everything. I mean, he wasn't a child, but he was a young adult, the future of the tribe and everything. So it was just awful. And I'm glad Rose is getting out of there. She deserves a break. And it's just so grim and heartbreaking that the Hanlons are staying. I hadn't thought about that. I thought for sure Charlotte was going to die, and it's like, well, she will. She will be for the 2017 movie, and probably not great, as we see from Leroy just suffering. He goes from this awesome person being like, help me save my baby, which also made me cry. That actor, man. And then he becomes this hateful that we see in 2017. So we know that Derry it rots him from the inside out, and that's just going to be very sad and kind of grim for Halloran too. Like he gets this new purpose in life, and we know how that ends. One of the things I was curious about, so I have a little tinfoil hat theory that when Pennywise was talking to Marge, as an aside, you ladies were right. And I remember Mandy saying it. I'm pretty sure Becky, you said it too, that she was Richie Tozier's mom. You called it. Is that, stick with me here. I want to know your opinion on this stuff. So Pennywise says that he can see all of his death coming, his death, his birth, and just spoilers for anyone who doesn't know, Pennywise can't travel through time. He does experience it linearly, but he's a metaphorical supernatural creature from the metaverse, and he's more like Dr. Manhattan than Doctor Who. So he can see all the timelines all at once, and he sees himself fail all the time. He's going to die. So I'm wondering if Gan or Maturin sent him to Earth, because that's the Machete lore, is that he was imprisoned in an asteroid and sent to Earth. They sent him here on purpose because they knew that there were beings on Earth that could kill him, the 5 avatars of the losers, as we're going to see in each generation. And they are eventually going to figure out how to destroy him for good. His prey is going to be the ones that take him out. And he's helpless to stop it. He's going to see it coming for thousands of years, and there's going to be nothing he can do to stop it. And so we're going to see, hopefully in seasons 2 and 3, as we go back in time, he's going to continue to stop it. I mean, he didn't go back in time. We're going back in time to see Pennywise back then. And he's going to try and stop Marge from being born or something, because he knows how this ends, and he's going to try and prevent his death in any way he can, like when he went after Marge, and he's just going to repeatedly fail. So I find that fascinating, and I cannot wait for season 2. I don't know, that's just my tinfoil hat theory. What do you ladies think? Because I feel like I went off on a whole other thing here.
We agree with you. That I think we discussed that pretty well in the episode, in our coverage, that he's going to go back in time and try to take out the lineage of the Losers Club.
I agree with that part, but I also think that to a certain degree, you have to look at this in layers. One layer being that this is all fiction, and it's all originally in the mindset of Stephen King, and then now, being interpreted by the writers of this show. And to a certain degree, the whole mythology of it doesn't really, if you try to drill down too closely, falls apart pretty quickly. because I think at the root, Stephen King's version of this type of cosmology is based on a lot of real world ancient cosmologies like Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism, Egyptian mythology, a lot of Egyptian mythology. That's where the quartet comes from. I really was kind of reading up on it, kind of fascinated to see that he very much has been obviously influenced by William S. Burroughs. But this idea of did he get sent here just so that he could be defeated over and over again? I think there's two answers to that. One is in regard to this series, the answer is going to be whatever the writers decide that it's going to be, because clearly they just make up a lot of shit that doesn't necessarily jibe with what we know of the existing lore of both Stephen King's universe and the movies themselves. They've retconned the shit out of it in this series. So on the other level, as far as Stephen King in the Stephen King verse, to answer you, Sam, I don't think that there was that kind of a purpose. No. I mean, maybe, but I think that what we know about those faith doctrines and Stephen King's interpretation of them is that fate and life is a constant circle of death and rebirth, destruction and renewal. And at the root of it, it's really just humans that give it labels like good and bad. So I think in Stephen King's cosmology, the creator of the universe doesn't see, and Maturin, they don't see Pennywise as evil. He's just an opposing force. Or he is as necessary as Maturin is, because destruction in all of those, Hinduism has Kali, for instance. I don't know, I'm nerding way out here.
Way out, man.
But I liked the question, and I wanted to answer that because I like, that's part of what I love about Stephen King is how deep it can really get. And so, Sam, in my opinion, if you're asking me what I think about the Stephen King version of all of this, no, I don't think that he was explicitly sent here as like a punishment. I just think that the way that it's put out is much like Hinduism, that destruction is as much a necessary part of the life cycle, of the cycle of the universe. And so it was just his fate to come here, I guess is the best way to sum it up.
Okay. Well, there you go. All right. Well, let's hear what Steve had to say about it.
Yay, my two favorite people are commenting.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, what's on tonight, crew? This is Steve.
Hey, Steve.
And gosh, wow! I just finished the It Welcome to Derry finale, and my goodness, I'm so ready for the next season, and hopefully they get to do more of them.
Fingers crossed.
We know that it's already been greenlit for at least one more season.
Oh, it has?
Maybe they're going to go up to 1935. With that end credit scene, though, maybe we might see some jumps into 1989, 2016. I don't know. I'm curious to see what we're going to get from the future of It Welcome to Derry. But man, that finale was great. It was good to see. It kind of end on basically kind of a high note. I loved the Richie Force Ghost coming into it and flipping off Pennywise as he ran past to help the kids get the dagger into the tree. And, of course, then at the end, Halloran, oh, so touching. It had me in tears, man. Him telling, I'm getting choked up right now just talking about it. Him telling Richie's parents, this is not Richie. Richie is
we do
the
the same
future
thing.
one.
We do the same thing.
Rich's parents, that he was there, that the ghost was there with them. And wow, Margie getting that kind of nod, the Sarah Connor nod that she's going to be the mother of the seed that's going to end Pennywise was just great. But of course, the reveal that Pennywise is he has some sort of weird supernatural relationship with time. I don't know. He knows the future. He knows the past. So how is that going to play into the future seasons? I'm excited. Can't wait. Of course, it's probably going to be like freaking 3 years before we get the next season.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you guys will be here for it. I'll be here for it. And can't wait to hear you guys talk about the finale of It Welcome to Derry, Chapter 1.
Thank you, Steve.
Oh, I love that.
I love hearing from him.
Steve, if we do get more seasons, you'll have to come on and do an episode with us.
Yes.
I would love that.
And I am worried, Steve, that you're right because of how labor intensive it is to create these. I imagine it is going to be at least a couple of years, especially because they haven't even been greenlit yet.
Right. And they took their time making this, because I remember when we were discussing what to cover, there still wasn't an actual release date. We weren't quite sure when it was coming. So they took their time with it. So we'll see. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to join us for this season and sending in your feedback. Alma, Erica, Sam, Steve, we love you guys and just appreciate you coming along for the ride. And if anyone would like to leave us feedback or just say hello, you can email or send us a voice message as an attachment to what's on tonight and the number 2@gmail.com.
You can also visit our Facebook page where there'll be a post for the next episode, and you can leave us feedback in the comments section or send us a message through Facebook Messenger. We can also be found on Instagram as well at What's On Tonight Podcast and the number 2. We would greatly appreciate it if you would leave us a comment, like, and or share on your podcast listening app of choice.
So what do you say we escape Derry with the Grogans, and on the drive, we can share where listeners can hear us, podcast recommendations, TV suggestions, or anything else you want to share. What do you got, Mandy the Dancing Clown?
Probably going to fall into a little bit of a TV depression after I get off here and realize it's really over. Because I don't really have anything else that I'm other than The Floor. I think I've talked about that before.
Yeah.
Eric and I are really into the game show The Floor lately, which, by the way, I think the finale comes on tonight. I am excited. Look, it's all back now. But I will tell you also, I'm super excited before I got on that if sometimes, not every year, but some years, I really super get into cheesy Hallmark movies. And I just found out that there's one about a lady that goes to stay at a hotel and there's a hot ghost that she falls in love with. So I'm pretty stoked about going and checking that out.
Sweet. That is
Called
right
The
up your
Spirit of
alley.
Christmas. Yeah. Don't know if it's good. Don't know if it's ironically terrible and which will also be good, or if it's just going to be lame. But yeah, I'm pretty stoked about that. That's what I got planned for this week.
Let me know what you think of it.
Yeah, I will.
So I'd like to give a shout out to Penny and Kara, who just released their coverage of the Body Switch episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, one of the best episodes of the series.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Please check out Still Slaying, a Buffyverse podcast. You can find the link in our show notes. And for TV recommendations, Fallout is back. Amazon Prime released the first episode yesterday, and that's what I did last night. And it was so good. I am very, very excited about the season. And as always, a big thank you to Mark and Pirate Core Entertainment for giving us this platform. Please visit the Pirate Core page. It can be found on our Facebook page, and there you can find our podcasts, as well as other podcasts like Dinner for Her with our very own Mandy, Adrenaline Cinema podcast, and Panels to Pixels podcast, as well as other projects Mark is working on.
Well, guys, that wraps up our coverage of it. Welcome to Derry. We're going to be back in a couple of weeks to begin coverage of a season 2 of The Pit. Oh, my depression just fully lifted. We only have a couple of weeks before it's all back.
Give me Noah Wiley on a motorcycle all day long.
I'm ready for my girl Santos to be back, since I am her only fan, not just her biggest fan. Yeah, there's a handful. There's a handful of people that love her. But I want to see her, and I want to see our girl. It's funny because remember how much I was hating on Garcia and Santos all through last season?
Now you're like, I want to let me see it play out.
Well, because at the time, I really thought in my head that there was it didn't make sense that they were super flirty with each other right off the bat, and I thought there was like a weird skeevy grooming thing. Yeah, I'm taking you back, girl. You're gonna get a lot more misdirections from me this coming up season, but I really, really can't wait.
A note that we do have so many great interviews being scheduled with cast and crew from The Pit, and we're going to have a lot of great guest hosts who are going to be joining us. We're going to be excited to welcome back our Pit fans. Before we go, I do want to give a shout out to Welcome to Derry Raw, a fan group started by Jan Odeski, who has been so cool at letting us just post all of our stuff, feedback, episodes, anything that we've wanted to share in regards to Derry. They haven't been nitpicky like some groups are, where you can't say this or you can't do that. They've just been so gracious. And so I want to give them a verbal shout out and also let you know in our show notes for this episode and the last episode of Welcome to Derry, you can find a link to their fan page. So please give them a shout out and just give them a follow. It's great Stephen King post and lore that they come up with. So it's a great page. So thank you to you all for supporting us during the season of Welcome to Derry.
I think that's so cool. One of the things I just love so much about our adventure doing this and podcasting is the collaboration that we have and the community that we build with other people. Because you have two different schools of thoughts with most of the people who are creating content about well, really anything, art in general. You have the people that are the gatekeepers, and then you have the people who are collaborative. And you could really kind of extrapolate this into a metaphor about Welcome to Derry in general. But I love that we have thrived because we have had so many people give us a chance to put our information out there on their fan pages, have answered our DMs when we send them to ask if they want to come on our show, things like that. I mean, these are the things that, two working, late 40s, early 50s ladies who don't have an entertainment background couldn't have dreamed of 10 years ago. And I love it. I mean, it's given us so many opportunities, and we have enabled other people to grow in their dreams and goals of, running a fan page. And I love that. And I can't wait to see how many more people and friendships and connections we make through this.
Yeah, very exciting. We want to thank you all for listening. For evil to flourish, it only requires good people to do nothing. So please get out there and do good, y'all. I'm Becky.
And I am still Mandy, your dancing daddy.
Beep, beep, Mandy. We'll catch you in 2 weeks when we grab the remote and see what's on tonight. Bye.